Yeah, whenever you're ready, Chair.
There we go. Evening, everybody, and welcome to the Tenants Forum. Just for those who are watching on YouTube, obviously we're relying on internet, so if we get any faults, please bear with us. And also welcome to Kate from Corby's Tenants Voice or Forum. Welcome. So, do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Councillor Jim French.
Thank you. Any others from anybody else? Not seeing anything else. Okay. Any declarations of interest? No. Excellent.
1 second, Chair. I'm just allowing Councillor Tebbett back into the room, so
all right. Okay.
Be worth checking. And I've seen Councillor Don's hand go up.
Oh, did you? Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Maggie.
Thank you, Chair. Just before you move forward, can you explain why there's no minutes for this meeting?
That is an error, Councillor. They're going to the next meeting in March. That line of the agenda should have been removed, and it wasn't. So, my apologies.
So, following our discussions this morning, I printed it all out, and then lo and behold, about 4 o'clock, it arrived by Mr. Postman. And I thought when I got the actual papers, I would find minutes, but
no.
Okay, so it's not me gone wrong.
No, both sets will be supplied to the next meeting, and that'll be the final set of minutes, and they'll all be signed off at that point.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Any matters to be raised by the Tenants Forum representatives? No. Okay, so we'll go on to the information items. Leona, I'll just hand over to you. I think it's easier.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a number of items to discuss this evening, the start of a consultation process. So, David, if you could first of all put the detail up for the tenancy agreement.
Give me just 1 second. I'm still letting people in. Through you, Chair, it might just be worth checking that Councillor Tebbett's got no declarations of interest before I start.
Mike, have you got any declarations of interest? You're on mute.
I'll take that as a no.
No.
Right, here it comes, Leona.
Thank you. First slide, please, David. Okay, so first of all, welcome to our Corby tenants as well as our Kettering tenants. I'm aware that we do have a number watching on YouTube Live as well. So thank you very much. And please, we very much look forward to your comments and contributions. Please feel free to contact me or Kath McGrath after this meeting. Okay, so thank you very much for that. Now, as you know, from the 1st of April, as Northamptonshire, we're going to have quite a large housing stock of almost 8,500 properties. So it's absolutely critical that we have a tenancy agreement that's comprehensive, that's really clear, and that both the teams are able to work with to enable us to have sustainable tenancies and sustainable communities as well. We let approximately 600 tenancies in Northamptonshire a year, and that's obviously through void properties and the provision of new homes. So 600 tenancies per year is a significant number. So I just want to, this evening, go through with you the tenancy agreement that myself and my counterpart, Kath Corby, have been working on. And a huge thanks to Kath for putting in quite a significant amount of work on this tenancy agreement. So if we make a start, next slide, please. Might need to click it again.
It has gone. It's gone across to the agreement.
Yeah, it's got, can you click it again?
Oh.
Okay. So this, for tenants in Kettering, you will notice a slight difference in the style of the tenancy agreement. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that the clear information on rights and responsibilities were really apparent. And we've got a new sort of front page to the tenancy agreement that's really aimed at identifying some really important features. Does it have a garage? Is it within a sheltered scheme? And it's a really clear indicator of the type of property it is, including really critical stuff such as exemptions from right to buy, and are there any shared areas, which obviously has implications for our sterile block policy or the managed block policy that's currently with Corby tenants. Okay, next page. As well as there being a different style for all of our tenants, both in Kettering and Corby, the new tenancy agreement will look and feel different. And the reason by that is because for Kettering tenants, it will be a lot more detailed. And for Corby tenants, it will be less detailed. It was a coming together of two different styles of presenting information. So I think one thing that is different initially for Kettering tenants is that we, within the tenancy agreement, are stating quite clearly at that beginning what you need to consider, and a warning that it is a legal document that you're signing. So therefore, you need to have regard to that. You're agreeing to the conditions, and a suggestion that you either ask for additional explanation, or there's the possibility of getting independent legal advice on that as well. So for us, it's about bringing that information through the whole of the process. So, that information is in the pre-tenancy information, the letters, as well now as the beginning of the tenancy agreement. So people understand the significance of signing that legal agreement. And the next slide. So as I said at the beginning, we wanted to be really clear on some sort of features of the property and the tenancy and the environment. So this is about being very, very, very clear at the beginning, and you've already seen this slide, so we'll just move on to the next one. One of the things that we have added is an additional condition of tenancy, that if the applicant has former tenant debts that are housing related, then those will be added on to as a condition of the new tenancy. So that's something new for Kettering tenants. So that's something to have regard to in your consideration of the new tenancy agreement. And the next slide. One thing that we have to clarify within our tenancy agreement are the rights of a secure tenant. All of the rights of a secure tenant are detailed in the agreement. I'm not going to read through them, but just to confirm that secure tenant rights remain the same for all existing tenants. Next slide. Okay, so rent is primarily the same. The rent clause does specify that it's 48-week debit, but tenants that owe money must continue to pay within those no collection weeks. I think the differences is we've added in a clause that if you're in receipt of welfare benefits and you receive the housing element of universal credit, for example, you must ensure that monies are passed on to us. That's not been a relevant issue until universal credit. And a difference for our Corby tenants is that all new tenants must pay 1 week rent in advance at the start of a tenancy. And that was different because historically that has been 4 weeks for Kettering and for Corby new tenants. Next slide. Okay, so looking at the clauses on repairs and improvements, the tenant's responsibility to report the repairs and allow access by tradespeople or contractors does remain the same for all tenants, and the council's responsibilities for repair remain the same as well. There are a few minor areas. So for clarity, we've added that we do not maintain garden paths and patio areas, which aren't essential for accessing your home, because there wasn't that level of clarity before. And also that we will not maintain garden fencing unless it's on a boundary to a public highway, and we will not maintain trees or shrubs as well. And it was important for us to put that information in this section just to provide that clarity. The next section is relating to living in and using your home. Now, clauses that are standard clauses of a secure tenancy remain the same. So everyone must use their home as their main, principal and permanent home. And if you are going to be absent for more than 28 days, you need to inform your landlord of that. And it's also your responsibility to keep the home in good condition as well. So those all remain the same. And the clauses on parking remain the same. There's an additional clause for KBC tenants in that you must not obstruct emergency services or others accessing their homes. It's something that was necessary in Corby, and we thought that was a positive step to take as well for all tenants in the borough. The clauses on pets remain the same. Next slide. Now, the probably the most contested clauses in any tenancy agreement are on the community and neighbourhood responsibilities, the behaviour or antisocial behaviour responsibilities. So I wanted just to make sure that all of those were included in this presentation. There are not significant differences. We've made sure that we've included all of the clauses that have been of benefit to our communities in order to be able to encourage and persuade people to comply with these. Lets us have more sustainable neighbourhoods. So again, the standard clauses of behaviour. So as a tenant, you're responsible for your own behaviour, but also the behaviour of people visiting or living in your property. And so all of you must not cause a nuisance, harass, threaten or intimidate or threaten any member of our staff or contractors. Next slide. There's sort of the clauses continue. So we've got make false allegations, must not use your home for illegal or criminal activity. And we've specified here the selling of or dealing in or growing of or manufacturing controlled drugs or storage of stolen goods, just in order to be able to sort of really bring home the message that actually we don't want the production of and the distribution of drugs on our estates. Mustn't damage any North Northamptonshire property or graffiti it. Mustn't interfere with the security or supplies to the property. Got a clause in about communal doors, must not leave those unlocked. And there's a domestic violence clause as well, which follows through from our domestic abuse policy for both Corby and Kettering. Next slide. We go on to the what you must not do. So we ask that you don't store any items in the communal areas, smoke or vape in the communal areas. Now, these are clauses where we've had policies over the years, but it makes sense to get them in the tenancy agreement so that everyone's fully aware of those. Other new things is that we're asking, or we're stating that people should not plant quick growing hedges as well, because they're a source of quite significant nuisance on the estates. And a new clause for KPC tenants in that you must use the bins provided and not allow rubbish to accumulate inside or outside your home. Thanks, David. And other really important clauses as well is that we make it really clear that tenants have a right to get involved in how their homes are managed, and the right to consultation as well. That's inherent in the tenancy agreement. And the final section in the tenancy agreement confirms how a tenancy can be ended. Okay. So I'm happy to take questions or comments on anything so far. What I did is I made sure that people had a copy of the tenancy agreement, just so that you could go through it if you, as we were going through the presentation. But I'm happy to take questions now on any points of clarity that people are needing.
Okay, let's start with Simon, then Reg, then Maggie.
Leona, I just wanted to check, obviously, might sound a bit obvious, but you said about any debts moving forward on to the next agreement. I take it also if you're in credit, that'll go forward on to the next agreement. It won't be refunded at that point, will it?
Through you, Chair. Absolutely, that's right. Yeah, but what we can't do is we cannot pass on the debt unless we've specifically made it a clause in the agreement.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
Reg?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As a leaseholder, I didn't hear any mention of changes for leaseholders in what Leona just said. Is there going to be significant change, or don't we know yet?
Through you, Chair. What we are doing, Reg, through our transformation work is we will be looking at services to leaseholders, but that's not something that will be in place before the 1st of April. So existing services will continue the same.
Many thanks.
Maggie?
Thank you, Chair. I was also going to ask about housing debt. I presume people have got an existing debt, providing they're maintaining some sort of payment system that has been agreed, that's acceptable. And 2 other points, if I may, Chair. You mentioned pets, but we had a policy about having to ask about dogs, and particularly dangerous breeds. I remember quite a heated debate one evening about that. So I'd like to be clear that that's still going to be enforced. And when you mentioned repairs in the clauses, which obviously is important that people understand where their responsibilities lie, is there an opportunity there to once again promote the insurance? Thank you, Chair.
Through you, I'll take those in order. In terms of former tenant arrears, clearly at the moment, if a former tenant owes money, then that debt is chased and it is collected, but that is collected separately to the ongoing responsibility of a current rent account if they come back to us as a tenant. What this allows us to do is this allows us to attach the former debt to the commitments of the current tenancy. Okay, that's not to say that debts aren't collected at the moment, but they're collected in a separate way. So this is just to sort of enable us to bring those together, but it will only ever be a manageable agreement, and people that are rehoused with debt, there needs to have been an agreement that's been adhered to for a certain period of time anyway. Sorry, and the third question was about insurance. We do mention insurance as part of the sign-up process, Councillor, as well. So we make sure that that's mentioned on a regular basis, and actually it is a clause in the tenancy agreement that the insurance should be taken, that we don't insure the contents.
And dogs, Leona?
And dogs, at the moment, our existing policies will remain. Moving forward into sort of transformation of our service, we will be working together just to ensure that we offer the same level of policy and support throughout the whole of Northamptonshire, but it will still apply to our local residents for now.
Thank you, Chair.
Andrew?
2 questions for Leona, please. Number 1, illegal, immoral or criminal activity. How do you define immoral? Is there a legal definition? I just wondered what sort of area that was. And secondly, about gas checks, which we've talked about before. I noticed that tenants are required to allow gas checks to be carried out, and that the tenancy agreement says that if they don't do so, then legal action could be taken and the charges given to the tenant to pay. Is that a new provision, or is it something which has always been there, and has it ever been used? Thank you very much.
Okay, so the phrase legal immoral is a terminology used in ASB legislation, and it's usually relating to sort of like any illegal activity. It's usually interpreted as drugs and or prostitution. With the gas, we can and do take action to enforce entry when we have been unable to do so for the annual gas safety check. And we do so on a relatively regular basis when it is absolutely necessary, when all other avenues of encouragement and attempts have failed.
Okay. Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Leona, just a couple of quick questions. On the new clauses, or slightly new clauses, I'm thinking around, like the drugs, the sheds and things like that, where it's not permitted in the tenancy agreement. I can see a lot of work for the housing staff enforcing this. I'm just wondering about the powers to enforce this, and is it going to be something that's going to create a lot of work, and it's going to be very hard to keep on top of?
Thanks, Martin. Through you, Chair. I think most of the clauses that are within the new tenancy agreement are relating to actions that our teams want to be able to enforce, and actually have been enforcing for quite some significant time. And this really is about providing clarity to tenants and to everybody else, as to be really clear about what it means to be a Northamptonshire Council tenant. With the clauses on drugs, for example, we have consistently and for a significant amount of time been able to take a variety of actions against people who are either growing or dealing drugs from their properties. We've been able to take action against criminal activity. We do so, and we will continue to do so. This just makes it clearer for everybody.
Okay.
Does that answer your question on that, Martin?
That was a thumbs up. So, Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Leona, just one other thing. When you were saying about keeping spaces clear within blocks of flats and things like that, with regards to sheltered accommodation, people with mobility scooters, etc., that can't obviously keep them in the flat, that do tend to put them downstairs. Are we looking at in the future, making sure that their needs are covered, that there's somewhere that they can store their mobility scooters? I know you did a bit of a scheme at Burton Latimer, but are you looking at going forward, making sure that all the sheltered accommodation areas have got that?
Thanks, Simon. Chair. One thing that we have done in a number of sheltered schemes is we have provided pods for mobility scooters, either pods or we've converted garages in some schemes as well to enable there to be charging points within sheltered schemes. What we will do in the future, we'll continue to assess the need, and then we will look at projects when we're refurbishing our sheltered schemes to see what is necessary at that time. But absolutely, we have been providing charging points and pods for mobility scooters within sheltered schemes.
Lovely. Thank you, Leona.
Thank you, Simon. Any other questions? No? Okay. You want to go on to the next one, Leona?
Thank you. If we could have the tenancy policy, please. Okay, well, thank you very much. It's me again on a relatively long presentation. You will probably, most of you recall that we updated Kettering Borough Council tenancy policy about a year and a half ago now. But I just wanted to remind everyone of the importance of a tenancy policy. You heard earlier how Northamptonshire is, a landlord of a large number of properties with 600 new tenancies a year. So we need to make sure that we as a council make the best use of those resources, and also to ensure that tenants receive the right amount of support, the right tenancy and the right property at the right time. The tenancy policy is critical so that we all know what to expect when someone applies for housing with Northamptonshire. And as a social landlord, we are required to have a tenancy policy. And as we offer flexible fixed term tenancies as an option, we need to have a policy so that if we wish to bring a flexible fixed term tenancy to an end, we can evidence that we've adhered to our tenancy policy. So I'm going to be going through the tenancy policy almost section by section this evening. Because I do want to remind everybody of the types of tenancy that is available and the types of tenancy that Northamptonshire will offer and how those tenancies will be reviewed. It's important as well that we look at the support available to tenants and how we manage some quite significant tenancy changes as well. So I'll be going through those areas of tenancy management and tenancy requests for changes. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so for the vast majority of tenants who are new to social housing, we will be offering a 12-month introductory tenancy, which will convert to a secure lifetime tenancy, so a traditional council tenancy. For tenants who are already social tenants, there is no need to have an introductory period. So if a secure tenant moves from one property to another, to a Northamptonshire property, that transfer will be to a secure lifetime tenancy. Now, in exceptional circumstances, within our tenancy policy, we have retained the ability to offer flexible fixed term tenancies, and it is in exceptional circumstances. And we do anticipate that the majority of our new tenants will be intro and or secure tenants. Next slide, please. So the exceptional circumstances are the same actually as within each of the tenancy policies for Kettering and Corby, although it has been used more in Kettering than in Corby. So tenants for whom their introductory tenancy has been extended just to allow more support and just to make sure that the tenancy's got that sustainability, may be offered a 2-year fixed term tenancy. And for those people that require more specialist housing solutions, such as the larger 3-bed parlour properties, the 4 or 5-bed properties, or fully and significantly adapted specialist accommodation, we're looking at a minimum of 5-year fixed term tenancies for those properties. We have to bear in mind that the majority of these properties could potentially be direct let because of the unique nature of our properties. I looked earlier and I think we've only got about 40 4 or 5-bed properties within the area. So we're talking about those coming up quite rarely. So those are exceptional properties. Now, if those properties are advertised on Keyways, it will clearly state that new tenants will be offered a fixed term tenancy, reflecting their household need. Next slide. Okay, so tenancy offers will be made to our applicants through Keyways or direct let in those exceptional circumstances. And our tenancy offers will always be in line with our Keyways allocation policy that was brought to the forum recently. So all at the forefront of your mind, I'm sure. The only exceptions really is that tenancies wouldn't normally be granted to applicants under the age of 18. There are very exceptional circumstances where a contract of necessity is needed. So the council will seek to vest that tenancy with an appropriate adult. In those circumstances, we have used adult social care or children's services in order to vest tenancies in exceptional circumstances until the minor reaches the age of 18. Also, in able to hold a tenancy, we need to be certain of the applicant's mental capacity as well. And where applicants or current tenants do lack the mental capacity to enter into a tenancy, we may refer to the Court of Protection to ensure that the tenants and that their neighbours have that level of certainty that the correct advice and support is always available. And as always, we'll always seek to involve support networks to support tenancy sustainment in all of these circumstances. So whether it's the formal support networks or the more informal family and friend support networks as well. Thank you. So it's absolutely critical in everything that we do that we support tenants, before tenancies, we support them in the pre-tenancy work that we do. And moving forward, we will be looking at sort of a transformation project just to make sure that we've got that support right. However, what we are committed to do is offering tenancy support to our tenants and providing that wide range of support at whichever point a tenant needs a little bit of support. It may be at the beginning of a tenancy, it may be as a result of life-changing circumstances, it may be at a point of other crisis within the duration of a tenancy. Very often it does involve signposting, but tenancy support is about providing very often short-term intervention to ensure that tenant has the very best opportunity to sustain. In addition, we also will commit to work in partnership with the local health and social care providers. We will be working with the partnership project, making every contact count, which means that our frontline officers will spread the training to all colleagues about how those points of contact with our tenants can offer those gentle nudges and offers of support and those soft referrals into some health solutions for people. And next slide, please. Okay, mobility in social housing is something that is absolutely critical. So a couple of ways in which we can increase people's ability to have social mobility is by transfers. So currently all applications will be assessed in accordance with the Keyways allocation policy. So it's that fair and transparent way that we can manage transfers within our stock. The allocation policy does also allow for direct lets in exceptional circumstances, and where we need to manage our estates effectively, sometimes direct lets can be a very effective way to do that. Mutual exchanges, we as housing professionals do like mutual exchanges because we have people exchanging so that we have two households suitably and happily accommodated. And we do encourage and promote most mutual exchanges. and we will continue to provide free access to the online home swap service as well. And we also aid people by providing downsizing support and funding for existing tenants. We label it as home move within Kettering management area. Corby is just downsizing, but it's in effect, it's the same thing. It's providing support and financial assistance to encourage people to move from a larger family accommodation into smaller, more suitable properties. Next page, please. Okay, our tenancy policy needs to include our tenancy fraud statement. So here it is. It's in general the same for most authorities, but the main thing is that we will act where we discover any instances of potential tenancy fraud. And these can come through a variety of means. They can come through our National Fraud Initiative. It can come from reports from neighbours or residents or other professionals working within the area. So you've got some examples here of tenancy frauds that have a real impact. Subletting, unauthorised assignment, wrongly claimed succession. These will all take, those valuable units of accommodation of homes out of the use of people that are in need on keyways. So we will investigate, we will have regard to both the civil and criminal remedies available as well. And we have taken action in both civil and criminal courts when we have the evidence of tenancy fraud. And we have publicised the result. Because one way to deter further tenancy fraud is to make it very, very clear that we do take tenancy fraud seriously and we will take action if we discover it. Next slide, please. Okay, one of the sort of major areas that we needed to ensure that we had in the tenancy policy was how we manage tenancy changes. So the first here is survivorship, which is a situation where you have a joint tenancy and one party to that tenancy dies. The tenancy then vests in the remaining tenant. They automatically take over the tenancy. It is considered to be a succession and the tenancy will continue in their sole name. We also have succession, and we have different succession rights according to the tenancy commencement date. And I just really wanted to sort of raise this here because there are, this is sometimes a concern for existing tenants. So tenants whose tenancy started before April 2012 have preserved rights to the full family succession. Tenancies after April 2012 have just one right of succession, and that's to spouse or civil partner. Now, we have not opted to offer any additional contractual succession rights other than the statutory succession rights. And also tenancy changes can be via assignment. So we obviously administer a request for assignment in accordance with statute, so in very limited conditions. So it's by court order, for example, matrimonial proceedings, from mutual exchange, or an assignment to someone who is eligible to succeed to that tenancy. So there are very limited reasons when we would accept a request for an assignment. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are always quite an issue in terms of tenancy management. So joint tenancies, if we have a joint application, we will offer a joint tenancy. And if we have a joint tenancy and somebody requests to come off the tenancy, we will only remove one party by a court order. A joint tenancy, the tenancy vests in you jointly. So notice from one party will end the whole tenancy. Slightly different for fixed term tenants, we both need to sign. But in general, notice from one party to a joint tenancy will end the whole tenancy. So the policy does detail the options approach that we would take in those circumstances, specifically if a tenancy was ended by one party and another remained within the property. So the options approach would be that we would need to look at the very specific circumstances relating to household composition, tenancy conduct, etc., because we would need to make a decision. Also taking into account Homelessness Reduction Act, we would need to look at what we can offer in terms of options for that remaining party in that tenancy. And sold to joint tenancy request, there's no right in law to request a new person to that tenancy. Another area which is relatively common is the name change of existing tenants. So just to make that really clear in our policy, the tenancy agreement doesn't change, but our records will be amended, and the request to change the name along with evidence of common usage of that new name will be added to the tenancy agreement, but a new tenancy agreement will not be issued. Next slide, please. Okay. Further, we need a policy on abandonment, and as you would expect, we would ensure that immediate actions taken to attempt to resolve any situation where there's a suspected abandoned property. We need all our properties to be used as main or only homes, because they're in such short supply. So we will investigate, we will make every effort to contact the tenant using all the resources that we have available to us. And if the property is abandoned, we will take possession action. Any items left in the property or any valuable items left in the property will be safeguarded, stored, and the costs will be recharged. Next slide. It's important to have an affordability statement. This doesn't happen very often because we do offer obviously affordable and social rents. However, we do still need to carry out an affordability assessment when we receive a nomination for a new tenancy. So we do carry out a full individual affordability assessment, which we go through with the applicant to make sure that they're satisfied that the property is affordable to them. If the property is not deemed to be affordable, we will not accept the nomination. In my experience, it's happened incredibly rarely, but when people have not got an eligibility for housing related benefits. Next slide. Okay, we also include here policy on tenancy enforcement. This links really closely, obviously, to the antisocial behaviour policy. So it's just about the commitment to tackling breaches of conditions of tenancy. And the significant thing really is to take relevant and proportionate action in all cases. We will always seek to resolve issues at the most appropriate level. So we will always aim to look for resolution at the lowest level possible. However, we do have recourse to legal solutions, and we do use those legal solutions. Thank you. Also, oh, there it goes. Details on decants. So sometimes when we have significant improvement works on a property, it's not possible to carry out those works with the tenant in situ for health and safety reasons. So tenants will be given the option to make their own arrangements, or we will work with the tenants to provide a temporary move to another property for the duration of the works. Next slide. Okay. Now, finally, the last piece in the tenancy policy is about tenancy termination, and it's a requirement to give 4 weeks written notice to end a secure council tenancy. We have pro formas in order to do that. It's not a legal requirement, it's just a little easier because there are some very specific information that we do require from people. That information is there. And just to say that tenants who have given notice to end their tenancy are expected to give access to us to inspect the property so that we can give advice on any work that's necessary before they leave, and or to start the voids and lettings process so that we can get the property advertised for the incoming tenant. And the waiving of the statutory 4-week notice period will only happen in very exceptional circumstances. And I think that is my questions or comments slide. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions? Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Leona, on the mental capacity, you mentioned in the policy, that full support will be given, before a tenant will be issued a tenancy, and it's great that all that support's there. I just wondered about how their mental capacity will be determined at the start before any tenancy begins or anything like that.
Thank you, Martin. We have quite an intensive pre-tenancy, call it a preamble, but a pre-tenancy process, Martin, whereby we have verifications, viewings, we have affordability assessments. So we get a very good awareness of someone's understanding of what it means to be a tenant, including now a one-to-one welcome meeting. So that's all in process, together with any information from health and social care partners that are working with that household.
Okay. Maggie.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points, if I may, through you. A number of sort of difficult areas within the borough previously. You've applied a local lettings policy to try and build a community back up again, with quite intensive work going on from housing officers to support those tenants. I wonder whether that's still built into this. And a second point is the joint tenancy thing, where one person gives notice, the other one is deemed to have given notice even if they haven't. I've been involved in a couple of these cases. Yes, you're nodding, you remember.
I do.
Where there's a difficult relationship, one gives notice, the other one still wishes to remain in the property, but the relationship between the two has broken down irrevocably, and the remaining tenant has become homeless, basically. And I wonder how you protect those people in such circumstances. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Maggie. I'll take the two. We still will operate local lettings policies where it's relevant, and that is within the tenancy policy. Sorry, I didn't bring that, and it's within Keyway's allocation policy as well. So we will continue to do that. It's evidence based and for a limited period, for as long as we need in order to build up that community. So we'll continue to work in those ways. With regard to the ending of joint tenancies, it is one of the most difficult things that our neighbourhood management teams have to do, to be honest with you. It's very, very clear that one party to a joint tenancy can end the whole tenancy. Occasionally, when we are looking at the options approach, we don't just leave it as that's it, you're homeless. We do look at that options approach to that situation, the same way as under the Homelessness Reduction Act, we have to look at options available to any household. But there are there are cases when if the tenancy has been conducted satisfactorily, if the property is suitable for the continued occupation, i.e. it's the right size and style of property for that person, there is a provision in the allocation policy to direct let the property in those circumstances. Unfortunately, there may be circumstances in which the tenancy is legally ended and the tenant is or will need to move to other accommodation. And I know the case that we've dealt with. I think the way that we protect people is by making sure that people are aware when they take on a tenancy of the ability of one party of that tenancy to end it, and also the risks if you are a sole tenant of requesting to add someone to a tenancy. There is no legal right to do so.
Chair, if I may, whilst I accept all that and I understand it, I wonder whether that needs to be sort of in bold in the policy so that when people get sight of that when they're first signing up, so that it's made really clear to them when they take a joint tenancy that that could be the situation if their relationship breaks down. Because we've had a number.
Through you, Chair, I think that's a really good point, and it's really important for everyone to understand that part of what it means to be a joint tenant.
I don't understand that until it happens.
Yeah.
So if we can preempt it in any way,
yeah.
I think that would be extremely useful. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Simon, and then Gloria, and then Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Leona, I was just wondering, with regards to the sole tenancy, the joint tenancy, is there a reason why you can't go on to a joint tenancy if somebody who lives in a council house meets somebody and they live together forever and ever until death do you part? Why can't they become a joint tenant to protect the person if the other person passes away?
I think through your Chair, there is no legal right to request someone to be added onto the tenancy. In exceptional circumstances, we could consider a request for a new tenancy, but it would be a new tenancy.
I see. So they could have a new tenancy
if they went through the comprehensive verification of their circumstances, and there'd be very, very prescriptive rules surrounding that.
So if somebody got married, that's what I mean. If it was something like that, that would be an eligible thing.
If someone got married, they would have that protection anyway.
Right. Okay. The other thing, just quickly, was a termination of tenancy. When you say written letter, would an email suffice, or has it got to be a written letter?
We do need a signature.
Right.
So as long as we could evidence that signature, then that would be sufficient. But we do need a signature that obviously matches the tenancy agreement.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Leona.
Thank you.
Yeah, Leona, on this mental incapacities thing, how would someone who is an adult but with learning difficulties that gives them the mind of someone who's under 18, like somebody of school age, they've got the mind of a school age person, living with family at the moment, that family then gets elderly and passes away. Are there ways of them actually maintaining their council tenancies in a place where they are monitored for their own safety and others' safety for you know, where you've got staff that are in the accommodation to monitor them 24/7?
Just to answer that, Gloria, I think that that's something that being part of a unitary authority may bring us greater advantages in terms of a closer working relationship with adult services. But ultimately, we would need to work with the Court of Protection and adult social care just to ensure that we had a legal responsibility for the management of the tenancy and obviously care of that young person or that young adult as well.
No, it's not. It's not. I know somebody who's in that position, and I know the parents are worrying like mad, because he is extremely vulnerable. And if somebody stops him in the street and says, "Give me your money," he'll give it him. You know what I mean? That sort of person.
I mean, I think in those circumstances, it's just about what type of accommodation is going to be the best solution, and you know, whether there is any provision of supported accommodation in the area that.
Sorry,
that they
Leona.
live.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? Andrew, are you okay? Councillor Dutton? Andrew?
Andrew? Andrew?
Oh dear.
Andrew?
Andrew? Are you okay?
We were worried then.
Must have fell asleep.
My dulcet tones, Councillor Dutton.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, carry on, Leona.
Yeah.
Are there any more? Are there any more? Was that
That's okay.
a very specific case, Gloria?
The things will be looked into. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Peter.
Yes, I was going to ask the same question that has been asked by Simon. When someone marries, what is the situation?
Okay, so there's already answered that question. Are you happy with that answer? Satisfied that that's already been answered, Peter?
Can you clarify again? Sorry.
What I was saying to Simon was that if there is a marriage, then there is protection in terms of succession rights to that married that spouse.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Maggie, did you want to come in again, or is it?
Oh no, sorry, I forgot to take it down.
That's okay.
I'll do so now.
Anybody else got any questions? Yes, sir. Dion? You're on mute at the moment, sir.
I'd just like to ask Leona, because it's such a key document, what type of different formats are going to be available as opposed to just merely being in hard print, and also in what different languages would it get printed in?
Thanks, Derek. What we will do is we will need to ensure that we understand the whole breadth of the community languages amongst the new council area, and make sure that what we have done past is we have translation service for our more common community languages. So we've provided it in those. We haven't provided it in Braille format. We've provided the policies in large print format as well.
What font size are you using, Leon? Now, is that font size 12?
On the policy, it was font size 12, but clearly in the past we've produced it in font sizes as per request, because we can do so.
Okay, thank you.
We can also provide it on different colour paper, just in order to make it easier for others to read as well.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? No? Okay. On to the next one, Leona.
Thank you. Aids and Adapts policy. Okay, so you know the stats by now, 8,500 homes, 600 relets per year, but significantly, we've got a third of Keyways applicants having a need for some kind of adapted property, whether it's just ground floor, level access shower, or some kind of adaptation. Bit of background, we run at about roughly 75 major adaptations a year, and this is major adaptations. So in the main, we're looking at level access showers and stair lifts primarily in those adaptations. We had aids and adapts policies for both Kettering and Corby that were relatively similar in their content because we're relying on the same legislation. So this is a policy that my colleague in Corby has provided and has worked incredibly hard at finessing over quite a few years. I therefore think it's a good policy for Northamptonshire to go forward with. There's some slight changes for Kettering, but it's on a par with the existing policies. So this is just a summary that we can go through a little bit quicker, you'll be pleased to know. So first slide, thank you. Okay, so just to summarise really, anyone who is a Northamptonshire Council tenant, their partner or a member of their immediate family can make an application for an adaptation. It needs to be because there's an impairment that has a significant long-term effect. So we're not talking about temporary situations. We're talking about a long-term effect on their ability to carry out normal day-to-day activities and access their home. So adaptations for children of tenants will only be completed, which is the principal home. So if your children only reside with you for 2 days a week, unfortunately, the adaptations will not be carried out in that property. Major adaptations as well won't be approved for people that are waiting for a medical procedure that will improve mobility. So we'll be working really closely with medical services and occupational health to assess whether a disability is a permanent and long-term disability or whether it's something that's more temporary. And it's really important to have within the policy that adaptations will not be carried out for people who are lodging or temporary visitors, because those residents do not have security of tenure and they could leave at any point. And we will only consider adaptations that have been recommended by community OT service. So when we've had a professional recommendation. And next slide, please. Okay, so as is the case at the moment, an application can be made to the Community Occupational Therapy Service for an assessment, and then they will carry out an assessment either over the phone or by home visit, and will produce a report of recommendation for Northants Council to consider. Now, we need to be satisfied that the works are reasonable, that they're feasible, it's possible within the property, and also that it's necessary and appropriate to meet the needs of the household as well. Next slide. It's important here just to sort of like look at the types of assistance that people may need when we're talking about aids and adaptations. Now, there are three areas that we're looking at. The first is just equipment and aids. And this isn't something that we as a housing team would be involved in, but this is something that our health partners or the community occupational therapists would deal with. So we're talking about the lower level, so walking frames, shower chairs, things that may be needed in addition to adaptations that we would support. So minor adaptations, either we will consider those through occupational therapy recommendation, or actually just directly from the tenant. So these will include things like grab rails, lever taps, moving light switches so they're accessible for people in a wheelchair, small half steps to enable access, flashing doorbells. So the lower level adaptations that will make a significant difference, but are not structural and are not expensive. So our major adaptations are only upon OT recommendation. So they're often structural. And the main thing is that they are required in order to improve safe access, improve safety, access to toilet or washing facilities, or to aid in the preparation and cooking of food. So this is about the most common examples are level access showers and stair lifts, door widening, larger ramped access, usually to the front door, and the provision of ground floor extensions in exceptional circumstances. So next slide, please. So when we receive a request for an adaptation under the policy, we will take, again, an options approach. We will review the circumstances around that application. So we will look at the recommendation, we will look at the property, so we will look at what's feasible within the property. We also always have regard for the best use of our stock and the best use of our resources. As a public authority, that is, we are obliged to do so. We will look at the impact on neighbouring properties, and we'll also look at alternative options within the property as well. That's to say, you know, it may be that there are options to move around the ground floor of the property if someone has problems accessing the stairs. Now, we'll also look at property demand and tenant circumstances. So we'll look at, are there other properties available within the area that are suitable and that wouldn't need significant adaptations? And we'd also look at, is that property fully occupied or under occupied when we're making our decision as to whether we approve an adaptation or not. Next slide. Okay, so in terms of funding and prioritisation, we do have a limited annual budget for aids and adaptations. And within that, our applications are prioritised according to the OT's opinion of how critical the works are. And then after that, by waiting time within those categories. So we have critical, urgent and standard referrals from our OT service. Obviously, the critical ones top of the list, and then by waiting time. Next slide. Okay. Now, within the policy, there are exclusions, and it's really important that these are sort of very, very clear. So we will not provide adaptations for use and storage of mobility scooters when you've got self-funded mobility scooters. If, however, an applicant has an electric wheelchair and the OT considers it to be critical, that's a different issue. But we will not automatically provide those adaptations for mobility scooters. Spoke earlier about projects to actually improve facilities within our sheltered schemes. So again, we would look at accommodation that does have those facilities. Another exclusion is driveways and hard standings. Extensions will only be considered if we don't have suitable property within the council's housing stock. And we will not carry out an adaptation if it results in the tenant still being able to access a significant proportion of the home and leave a proportion of the home unused. We won't carry out adaptations if the request is to address a specialist medical need or equipment. That will be the health providers that will be responsible for that. And we will not provide adaptations in the communal areas if it impedes on access for other residents. So, for example, we would not put a stair lift in a communal stairwell in a general needs block of flats. Next slide, please. Okay, now tenants' contribution is is something significant for Kettering Borough Council tenants because we've not had this in our policy before. And to highlight that if we install equipment with an ongoing maintenance and servicing requirement, then we may raise a service charge to cover that ongoing maintenance and servicing of that equipment. Next slide. And sometimes people will request to install their own adaptations, and we'll consider any request the same way as any request for an alteration and improvement to a property. And as it says there, permission will not be unreasonably withheld. But at the end of a tenancy, any tenant installed adaptations must be removed and the property made good so that we can let that property again. Next slide. Okay, so once adaptations are within a property, it's really important to say that actually those adaptations must not be removed during or at the end of the tenancy. Those adaptations remain the belonging of the council. And if a tenant removes an adaptation without approval, then they can be recharged for replacing it. Now, in some circumstances, if an aid or adaptation isn't required anymore, then we may consider moving it to a new home in exceptional circs. And if an adaptation is no longer working, so say, for example, a stair lift is no longer working, then obviously if it can't be repaired, it will be removed. But we will carry out a reassessment of need at that point. If a property, however, has got structural adaptations, for example, it's got widened doors or a wet room, we wouldn't normally remove those. Though there may be exceptional circumstances in which we are unable to match an adapted property to a household that needs it. We will advertise that property on Keyways. If we're unable to let that property with the adaptations, then we may remove the adaptations in order to let a property. Next page, please. Okay, so I've just basically covered that. So with our significantly adapted properties, we will aim to direct let them. We'll maintain an adapted property list so that we are aware of our significantly adapted properties within North Northamptonshire. We know through Keyways our applicants, our home move applicants who are seeking adapted properties, and we have our list of waiting lists for adaptations through our Raising Adults policy. So it makes sense for us to work cooperatively with our colleagues to direct let significantly adapted properties. But if we're unable to let a property to the perfect household through a direct let, we will advertise on Keyways, and we will open it up wider to our general applicants. And I think that is my last slide. Thank you.
Okay, so has anyone got any questions or on that one? Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Leona, I just wanted to ask, who is your occupational therapy provider, and how do you contact them, and also where do you publish it and connect?
Thank you, Simon. We do use Olympus Care at the moment. The information is in the Aids and Adapts policy, and our neighbourhood managers and our home move advisor or housing officers within Corby all regularly provide information on Aids and Adapts.
Okay.
Can also receive an OT referral through GP or other health providers as well.
Lovely. Thanks very much.
Maggie.
Thank you, Chair. Just a bit concerned about refusal to adapt a property that's under occupied. Obviously, we've got a lot of elderly tenants who have been in their property forever. Family have all gone. They are under occupying. They're in a 3-bedroom house, whatever. And obviously the position ought to be to encourage them to accept a home move, but a lot are very reluctant to do so, and then can't get up the stairs. Would they then be refused a stair lift because they're under occupying? It sounds like that's what you're saying. That's one question. The second one is, once a property has been adapted and a new tenant's take on an adapted property for whatever reasons which you've deemed to fit the circumstances, do they then forfeit the right to buy because it's been adapted after the X number of years, obviously, of tenancy?
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Take the first one first. In terms of under occupation, we do currently refuse applications for adaptations where a number of sort of factors come into account. Under occupation is one. So if, for example, an elderly tenant is living within a large 3-bed family home, they're under occupying, they they're not using the whole of the property, and or any adaptation could be carried out on the ground floor but they wouldn't be using the upstairs, then we do say that we refuse that application. There is a review process that John would administer, but ultimately we would be working with that tenant to see if we can encourage a move to more suitable and safe property.
If I can add to that, Chair, I think that those sort of reviews are very, very rare, and I think what we find most often, people might be reluctant to move, but it's because they can't face the hassle of moving, rather than they've got an overwhelming attachment to the property. So our home move advisor works with them to make that as easy as possible. So it's, I can't think of any particular case that comes to mind where we've had someone who is refusing to move and turning down the chance of accommodation. It's easier for them to live in, easier for them to keep clean and that sort of stuff. So I see where you're coming from, Maggie, but I think in reality, through discussion and support, we can get people into a better place. So they get somewhere they're happier and can live independently longer in. And we get our hands on a 3-bed property that we can then rehouse a family off the waiting list.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that moving at a certain age is scary. I'm approaching that point, so I do understand. And
that's why, when Home Move was introduced, it was really about providing support, somebody there, someone to offer all of that practical help and advice, and someone who's had experience of doing it over and over and over again, and helping lots of different people through that same process. I mean, not one case is the same, clearly. So it's just, that encouragement that, other people have done this, and it's about smoothing that transition.
Yeah. And the right to buy?
The right to buy. Now, what we can do, if we can evidence that a property has been significantly adapted and it's of a unique character, there are times that we can exclude a property from the right to buy. If we can, we will.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can do it if it's been a significant adaptation.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't be able to do it just because it was something relatively minor. It would need to be significant. It would need to be not only a level access shower, but full widening of all doors, hoists. It would need to be significant adaptations, or that it was built as part of a specific scheme, and it was designed to be a unique property.
Well, that's where my thoughts first started, was that we've built properties where that right to buy doesn't exist because they have been built.
Yes.
Thinking of Avondale, for example.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I wondered whether the same applied after you'd had a significant adaptation installed.
It depends on the level of adaptations, and each case would need to be reviewed potentially by the first tier tribunal.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Evelyn, you're on mute. Evelyn, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done.
So it's about the adaptation. So regarding this aging population, as to how people are now living longer as a result of better healthcare, we assume demand for adaptations will keep growing because of the age population. So since we have only few of these properties which have these special features, are there any plans or considerations for such properties to be added in the future or the nearest future builds, rather than always having to spend money when the need arises? So if maybe one bedroom or 2 bedroom houses would be added to future new builds because of the aging population, which is growing always, I think it will, at the end of the day, at the longer period, save the council money than always have to put features whenever the needs arise in maybe 3 bedrooms where somebody is, or 2 bedrooms, it will solve all these problems.
Thank you, Evelyn. John, did you want to take that?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Yeah, we've actually got a number of new build schemes on site at the moment. We're building 6 bungalows at Albert Street in Kettering, and that scheme is now under construction. And those properties will be suitable for elderly people with mobility issues. We're also about to start work on our Scott Road scheme. We're in contract there, and the site's been cleared and pre-contract works are underway. And there too, there'll be some units that will be for people who are disabled. And very significantly, at 2 future sites, one in Stamford Road and one at the Lawrence's site in Desborough, we're actually building 4-bed houses with, if you like, expanded ground floors for family members who might be disabled. So you might have a teenage child, for example, with a disability, and they can live independently on the ground floor, and the rest of the property is like a conventional family home. So Evelyn is right. You know, it's a good thing to do if we can build these homes from scratch. We don't need to adapt existing homes, and because of the ageing population, there's certainly a demand for such homes, and not just elderly people, but young families as well on occasion.
Thank you.
I'd also add that building the adaptive homes actually helps us twofold, because we've got specific built homes, adaptive homes, brand new for residents, but it frees up the home that they're coming out of for putting into the general population as well. So we win twofold by doing this. Any other questions?
Well, just say as well, Hamilton and Montrose House also had adapted flats built into those as well on the ground floor. which are also on the Lifeline system too.
Yeah, I forgot those. Thank you, Dan. Any other questions? No? Excellent. Thank you for that, Leona. Appreciate it. So we're on to capital programme now. So that's Dan.
Dan, you're on mute. Is there a
presentation?
Is there a presentation for this, Dan? Because
well,
if there is,
there's just the normal report, David. Did that not make it to yourself?
Let me see what I can find. Give me 1 second.
Did everybody receive the report? If not,
yes, Chair, I was going to say the report's actually attached to the agenda.
Yeah.
1 sec. On its way.
okay. Thank you, David. Thanks, everybody. So I'll just run through some of the headlines for you as usual there. As you can see, this is where we currently stand with regards to the different schemes and the numbers. Now, we are working on data for the end of December, so that there is that sort of 6-week lag whenever we have the tenant forum. But as you can see already, in the position at the end of December, we'd already achieved our target on both the EICR work and also the new central heating boilers. I actually found out today we've now passed 400 boilers for central heating renewal, and I think it's an amazing achievement considering COVID restrictions that we've been able to deliver that number of boilers this year. So much so that we've actually brought forward some of next year's programme into this year so that we don't have to stop, we're able to continue working. So I'm not sure yet exactly where we'll end up, but I think, that possibly around about the 450 mark is where we're now looking at getting by the end of March. As was last month, I'm afraid, kitchens and bathrooms still yet to start, and as long as the lockdown's in place, they won't start. So we won't be doing this year's programme until next year there, unfortunately. Door entry systems on the blocks, nearly finished now. The final 3 blocks are just left to do, and there's a supply issue with the electrics that we've got to get put in place first before we're actually able to do the doors there. So there's new supply being put into those particular blocks. Roofing has stalled for 2 reasons. They are back again now, but there has been a bit of a stall on the roofing due to the bad weather and also a lack of tiles. But we are working again on the roofing, our contractors there. Doors are progressing, so they're still coming in batches. So if anyone lives in that Naseby Road area there, you may have already been contacted and had a survey for your new door. Similarly with EWI, that is progressing along at the moment. And then Homes for the Future, we are very close to the first 2 tenants being able to decant out of their homes into the properties in Desborough that we have been working on, and the properties in Rothwell are underway, the first 2 void properties there. Sparkle and Hidden Homes, they won't be moving again until such time as the lockdown is lifted. Fire precaution works are going on where we can do those in communal areas. And I think Leone's already covered our aids and adapts situation tonight. Again, those works are going on where tenants are happy for us to work in the property. Can I have the next slide, David? Thank you. This slide basically just sums up the sort of information I've told you already, just gives an idea of where we are working. So can we move on to the next one, please? Okay, so sorry, this is the financial position that we find ourselves in. Like I said, the main points to flag up is that the central heating budget, we've actually increased that budget from 550 now up to 610 by moving some money from our kitchen and bathroom programme which we will replace next year, and hopefully be able to start our kitchen and bathroom programme next year, as long as we're free of lockdown restrictions there. There's no other particular issues. The only other main budget pressure that we're probably going to find ourselves in is with the projects where we won't be spending the money, the likes of Hidden Homes. Also, Homes for the Future won't get as far in as we'd hoped due to the length of time it took to get started because of the COVID impact at the start of the year. Can I have the next slide, please, David? Okay, so got a feature on the door entry programme, which is nearly finished now. I think, Martin, you've previously asked where we are with projects like this. We've tried to cover this one off for you tonight. So we've got 88 generally blocks that required the new door entry system. And to date, 85 of those now have the key management system installed. And hopefully, as long as everything goes to plan, the final 3 blocks will be done in March. So I think significant achievement there. That will complete our general needs door entry programme system. 72 of the blocks have got the Bamford reinforced aluminium door and frames, and they are tamper-proof and considered to be one of the most secure systems on the market. With the remaining blocks having a hardwood door and frame that are approximately 10 years old now. So you can see that the impact, again, I don't know if anyone here has had the benefit of this being installed in a block near them, but you can certainly see the impact that it has on that area once the new door is fitted. The next slide, please, David. And I think another question we had last time, I think it was from Councillor Don, about the boiler type. So I went away and tried to get that information for you. And I'm pleased to say that we've been able to do that. I think what you can see is, although we still have a number of different boiler types, I think it's 13, 4 or 5 of those brands are very small in number. So we're actually growing our number of ideal boilers, which is what we've been fitting now for the last 2 or 3 years. And what I think you'll find is in another year's time, the number of ideal boilers will be up there around the same as the Worcester boilers. And that'll probably represent about 2/3 of the Kettering stock having just 2 types of boilers in there. So a real progression on where we were, I think approximately 3 years ago when that pie chart probably would have looked, significantly more fragmented in terms of the different boiler types. So we're really seeing the benefit of our programme of boiler investment that we've done over the last couple of years now. Have the next slide, please, David. Okay, and this is our sort of recurring slide so that you can see. Can actually say as of today, we're now at 100% for the gas safety certificates. So again, real achievement. We've managed to get ourselves into that position despite, again, the problems that COVID has thrown up. The decent homes percentage has increased due to the fact that the data expires on the end of a calendar year. So the figures that are put in there would suggest when things need to be replaced. That is obviously a guide figure, and it is something that we are aware of, and we do want to have a look at the data that we put into there through the stock condition surveys that, again, we haven't been able to do now for some time due to COVID. I don't think there's anything else really to pick up on there. The fire risk assessments, we are undertaking works that are required on those properties. So again, we end up with the blocks being all the works completed on those. And again, hopefully there'll be a growing number of works completed that you'll see as we go along there. And one final thing to say about the EPCs. Obviously, projects such as our EWI, external wall installation, play a big part in increasing the EPC of a property. We were unfortunately unsuccessful in a bid for some government funding to hopefully receive a grant to put more EWI into our properties. However, there is going to be another round of funding that we do intend on bidding for. So if we can obtain more funding, we can do more EWI on the Naseby Road estate, for example, and that will bring more properties up into a C or a B, for example. as most of those properties that will be a B rated are probably the likes of the ones that have had the Homes for the Future treatment in the past. So something we're keen to see more and more of our properties moving up in the energy efficiency rating. Have the next slide, please, David. And then an area that I don't cover, but I'm happy just to sort of give you a bit of an update on is the new build programme. John's already said tonight how we've started the building works at Albert Street there, and you're able to see some of the first shots of how they're getting on site. So you can see the foundations going in for those properties, and I think John said that 6 bungalows are going to be developed on that site. And I believe Scott Road, the other garage site, the other side of Kettering there, is due to start work if it hasn't already. So another good piece of news there, see some more new build development. And we've obviously got applications in for the Grange Road Methodist Church site as well. And we continue to engage with Homes England on the Lawrence's site. You know, there are issues around that site that means that it needs more extensive input before we look at the planning on that one at the moment. Okay, I think that's it for tonight. So happy to take any questions.
Does anyone? Reg?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. With regard to the door entry systems, Dan, they do look very impressive, but there is a way that people have found to tamper with them, unfortunately. And that is to put grit in the rebate, so the door won't shut properly. And
right, okay.
People shouldn't get access to the box, are getting access.
Right, okay.
I just thought to bring that to the attention of anybody who needs to know.
Yeah, I guess that's one of those things, whatever we put in place, if someone's going to sort of wedge something almost in the way of it, it's going to stop the system working. I don't really know, Leona, is there anything we are able to do around sort of like publicising that to the residents or anything?
Yeah, Dan, we certainly can. And what we can also do, if it's specifically an issue down on Highfield Road, is we can liaise with our contract cleaner as well and make sure that those are cleaned out on a regular basis. But absolutely, if we know that it's happening in an area, we will certainly publicise the need to.
Andrew Stamps, the cleaner, is aware of the situation and just clean it out, but he's only around once a month.
Yes.
I think in addition, also, Chair, the neighbourhood managers carry out regular inspections. So it's something perhaps we can ask them to keep a special eye out for. And if they pick up, get some interim cleaner, or if it's grit, maybe it's something they can do themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dan, for the information on the door entry system with the numbers that I asked for. Thank you very much for that. Would it be possible, though, to have some numbers on a couple of the other things as well? You know, like I'm thinking, like you've got on here, the doors, you're at 21.43%. So how many doors in total is there to be completed? And what are the numbers then that you've already done? And same as the roofs, really. So can we have some numbers on some of the other things as well? And just one more thing, on the jargon EPC and FRA, I mean, I might know what they are, but can we have a jargon thing if we are going to use those things so everybody knows what they mean? Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. Look at that.
Okay. Maggie.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Dan, for the pie chart with the boilers. It was me that raised it last time. Really good to see that you're getting the numbers down. However, by the same context, if you're mainly using Ideal now and there are a large number of Worcester boilers in use, I presume you can carry the regular parts for those as in stock, rather than having to wait for them to be ordered and eventually come, etc. So that's one question. The second one is, these boilers where there's just one or two of Alpha and Velsman and Valiant and things, if they break down, is it worth getting parts for them, or do you just go straight for a replacement with an ideal?
Yeah, through you, Chair. So the question there, Councillor, about the type of boiler, what we have is a matrix whereby we look at any boiler that breaks down. We have a process that we go through, and our gas supervisor is involved in that process and will make a decision on whether to repair or replace. So it's things like the age, the number of repairs we've already done on it. It probably will be the type of boiler there as well would come into the equation as well. So yeah, very much something that we do look at on a case-by-case basis, and obviously, you know the numbers of boilers we're fitting. We don't sort of continue to throw sort of money at parts if if it's already had a lot or it's at the end of its working life. So it's certainly something we've tried to make sure wherever possible we've replaced. And the Shaffertoe boiler has been the biggest one that we've targeted, with regards to replacement this year. The other question with regards to parts, yes, the plan is that as we get to a stage where we have a more manageable number of boilers, which, like I said, we are sort of getting there, and I'm sort of maybe thinking another 12 months, sort of another 300, 350 boilers, is going to reduce down once more the numbers of these ones. The plan is that we can start to have the parts that we're likely to need for the brands of boiler we have the most of on vans. Something else that we're having to do as a result of the move to North of Hants is actually change over the way our stores inventory is held. So at the moment that the stores inventory is held on the Aggresso financial system, and that system goes on the 31st of March, and the new system that comes into place didn't have the ability to hold the stores inventory. So that's being moved over at the moment. And as part of that, van stock is a big thing we're trying to get right. So basically it will mean that each gas operative will carry the same type of parts on them, so that there's more likelihood they'll have that part on the van when they do need to do a repair.
Thank you, Chair. It's obviously really important that we keep a certain amount of sort of common replacement parts, because boilers only ever break down in the winter. So somebody ends up being cold for projected periods of time. That's obviously not good. So the more we can work towards getting this down, the better, as far as I can see.
Can I chair at that moment? So one of the things we keep an eye on these days is actually boiler breakdowns. Every week we look at those, and I think what we've really been pleased to see is the evidence of Dan's investment programme, in that, if you recall 2 or 3 winters ago, we had a real crisis. We had dozens of boilers breaking down all at the same time. And this winter, there has been a bit of an increase, but nothing untoward. And I hope that's reflected in the fact you're not getting, or we're certainly not seeing, complaints about boilers fed on to us. And
this winter.
Yeah, well, touch wood. It just shows, though, by taking a strategic look at it and saying, okay, what's generating these breakdowns? And part of it is the wide range of old boilers without parts, and by targeting those that are especially problematic, like the Shaffertoe ones, we've actually really been able to get results very quickly. And we want to, once we've dealt with boilers, is move on to other areas like electrical installations, and target resources on the areas that generate day-to-day repairs.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Chair.
Mike and then Gloria.
Thanks, Chair. Could you please see if you can organise an offline discussion with John and the other Desborough councillors, just to bring us fully up to speed with the Lances site?
I was going to ask for that already myself, because I haven't.
Sorry?
I was going to ask for that myself because I haven't had an update for a while.
Yeah, very pleased to do that, Chair. Just to say, late this afternoon, I've got drawings of the current proposals.
Excellent.
And just to give you a heads up on that, we're looking at retaining the main factory building now and turning that into townhouses and flats.
Right.
And we've been talking to both Historic England and Homes England. Historic England, I think, without prejudging their professional assessment are actually really pleased with what we've done.
Oh, good.
And Homes England are very interested in the project and recognise that it's a bit special. So I think in terms of your thoughts on the scheme, Councillor Tebbit, I'm hoping you'll be more pleased with where we are now than with the original scheme.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Building for health, building health for healthy homes is key to our future plans. Thank you very much.
Yeah, if we can arrange that, John, I appreciate you're all busy. Gloria.
Yeah, going back to the boilers, when you've got these new ones installed, are they not covered by a manufacturer's warranty?
Yeah, we get a 7-year warranty on the ideal boilers. So, that does mean that we can go back. I'm not aware yet of one where we've had to go back on, I must admit. I'm not saying it hasn't happened, but it's certainly not been brought to my attention. So,
Does it cover repairs as well?
What it would usually cover is they will send out the replacement part and we would fit that part, and then possibly we may get a credit for fitting the part, but it's not something, like I said, we've had to explore yet. So we'll look at that if the need arises.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Dan? No? Okay, thank you, Dan. So onto the feedbacks. So Connect, is that Leona?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, me again. Just very, very quickly, we are at first draft stage of the latest Connect. Articles include quite a large article on future North Hants, so what we as housing have been getting up to in preparation for Northamptonshire. And also, I think really importantly, thanks to our tenant reps who have quite happily given us a bit of a pen picture on how they've been involved working with the housing service over a wide number of years. So thanks very much for that. We've also got reminders in there about COVID safety, rent, where to get help, and on the elections and the census as well. So encouraging people to participate in all of those. So be receiving that early March.
Okay. Thank you, Leona.
Through you, Chair, the census, don't have to encourage, it's legal.
I know, but it's just to make sure that people respond appropriately. I know it's legal.
Okay. Tenants overview and scrutiny panel. Martin.
Thank you, Chair. Just very quickly to say that we are continuing to meet on a regular basis, checking all the performance indicators and monitoring the services which are being provided. And it's great to see Kate and Derek here tonight. It's been a long time since I've seen you, and hopefully in the future we can look forward to working closely with your scrutiny panels and see if we can do some joint work. So we'll bring more to that in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Any other business? No? Okay. For the benefit of Kate and Derek, we have a prize draw every tenants. Yeah. Oh, Maggie.
Got a hand up.
Yeah. Sorry, Maggie.
Thank you, Chair. Because we didn't have any minutes, I would have asked under matters arising about homelessness, as I do each month to try and get an update of the picture. And I understand we've still got somebody in a tent just behind the library. And I just wondered what was happening with those people, please.
John?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. We're continuing to have, at the moment, about 20 to 25 households approach us because they're either homeless or threatened with homelessness every week. That's down from about 30 per week prior to the pandemic. In terms of temporary accommodation, we've seen, at the moment, we're hovering around the 50 mark. And I think it's going to stay high 40s, early 50s for a while. You remember we came down from 234 fairly consistently over the past year, 18 months. But I think it's settling at a level where that's probably where we're going to be for foreseeable future. Having said all that, everyone's in self-contained accommodation, either council stock or nightly paid stock. We've got a very small number of people in bed and breakfast for specific reasons. Dealing with rough sleepers, we do a sweep of locations where rough sleepers have been found at least twice a week, generally at night time, sometimes in the early morning. And our approach is that everyone finds accommodation. If we find a verified rough sleeper, then we will seek to get them accommodation, to get them into accommodation, put together a plan, support plan for them, and both ourselves and accommodation concern will work to get them moved on as quickly as possible into some permanent housing solution. Now, we do get the odd person who refuses contact. I don't know if the guy you're talking about is the one I've been told about, someone who was offered accommodation by Corby, refused it, and then moved on to Kettering. He's been spoken to on a number of occasions and offered accommodation, and up to this point refused to engage. So housing, accommodation concern, the police and the neighbourhood wardens are all aware of him and are trying to get his trust and to bring him off the streets. So in general, the number of rough sleepers is very low. I think I said before, lead up to Christmas we had nobody. But what we are finding, and this is a general thing that housing authorities are seeing, is that it's not just one group of people. There's actually a flow through of rough sleepers over time. And so, you know, I think before we knew people very, you know, in much detail of, you know, who they were and what the circumstances were, we assumed there was a sort of entrenched group, but it's not like that. You'll deal with a group and then other people will come in. So I said before Christmas we had nobody on the street. Immediately afterwards we had 5 rough sleepers. And they were either new or people who hadn't been rough sleeping before. But having said that, I think the feedback we've had from central government on our performance has been really good. They're really pleased with what we've done. If you look back a couple of years, when we did the rough sleeper count, I think we had 16 one year, 18 another year. This year, I think it was 1 person.
I think those years were probably underestimated as well.
Mm.
So, anyway, thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So as I was saying, for the benefit of the Quilby guests we've got tonight, we have a prize draw at every Tenants Forum. Kate and Derek, your names have been put into the draw. So David, if you want to do that for me. And you're on mute. Oh, it's Kate from Corby.
Congratulations. Happy
Nice
Look at that.
So congratulations, Kate. Is it Leona's? Leona's got the vouchers. She'll arrange to get them over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'll liaise with Kath and we'll get those to you, Kate. Okay.
Okay. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't got a date for a next meeting. I don't even know if we've got one, to be honest. John?
Mr. Chair, I think it's the 10th of March.
10th of March.
And that will actually be the last Tenants Forum in the under Kettering Borough Council. So probably a couple of things we will want to do is have an eye on the future and how the new housing service will operate, you know, after North Northamptonshire Council comes into being. And second, probably look back at some of the achievements of this forum and the housing service over the past few years. So, and plus anything else people wish to see, but I think that those would be two good items. And I think, Chair, if I, you know, suggest, you know, our friends from Corby, if they wish to join us at that meeting, they're very, very welcome.
That'd be brilliant if you could join us again, Kate and Derek.
Yeah. See if Kate can pull off the double.
Yeah.